Book 3. Helios, leaving behind the lovely standing waters, rose up into the brazen sky to shine upon the immortals, and also on mortal men across the grain-giving farmland. They came to Pylos, Neleus's strong-founded citadel, where the people on the shore of the sea were making sacrifice of bulls who were all black to the dark-haired Earth-shaker. There were 9 settlements of them, and in each 500 holdings, and from each of these 9 bulls were provided. Now as these tasted the entrails and burned for the god the thigh bones, these others put straight in. And on the balanced ship took off the sails, and stowed them, and moored her in, and themselves landed. Telemachus stepped out of the ship, but Athena went first, and it was the grey-eyed goddess Athena who first spoke to him.
"Telemachus, here is no more need at all of modesty, for this was why you sailed on the open sea, to find news of your father, what soil covers him, what fate he has met with. So come now, go straight up to Nestor, breaker of horses, for we know what intelligence is hidden inside him. You yourself must entreat him to speak the whole truth to you. He will not tell you any falsehood. He is too thoughtful."
Then the thoughtful Telemachus said to her in answer, "Mentor, how shall I go up to him? How close with him? I have no experience in close discourse. There is embarrassment for a young man who must question his elder." Then in turn the grey-eyed goddess Athena answered him,
"Telemachus, some of it you yourself will see in your own heart, and some the divinity will put in your mind. I do not think you could have been born and reared without the god's will."
So spoke Pallas Athena, and she led the way swiftly, and the men followed behind her, walking in the god's footsteps. They came to where the men of Pylos were gathered in session, where Nestor was sitting with his sons, and companions about him were arranging the feast, and roasting the meat, and spitting more portions. These men, when they sighted the strangers, all came down together, and gave them greeting with their hands, and offered them places. First, Pisistratos, son of Nestor, came close up to them, and took them both by the hands, and seated them at the feasting on soft rugs of fleece, there on the sand of the seashore, next to his brother Thrasymmedes, and next to his father. He gave them portions of the vitals, and poured wine for them in a golden cup, and spoke a word to both of them, pledging Pallas Athena, who is daughter of Zeus of the Aegis. "My guest, make your prayer now to the Lord Poseidon, for his is the festival you have come to on your arrival. But when you have poured to him and prayed according to custom, then give this man also a cup of the sweet wine, so that he too can pour, for I think he also will make his prayer to the immortals. All men need the gods. But this one is a younger man than you, and of the same age as I am. This is why I am first giving you the golden goblet." So he spoke, and put in her hand the cup of sweet wine, and Athena was happy at the thoughtfulness of a just man, because it was to her he first gave the golden goblet. Immediately she made her prayer to the Lord Poseidon.
"Hear us, Poseidon, who circle the earth, and do not begrudge us the accomplishment of all these actions for which we pray you. First of all to Nestor and to his sons grant glory, and then on all the rest of the Pylians besides confer gracious recompense in return for this grand hecatomb. And yet again grant that Telemachus and I go back with that business done, for which we came this way in our black ship."
She spoke in prayer, but herself was bringing it all to completion. Next she gave Telemachus the fine 2-handled goblet, and the dear son of Odysseus prayed in the way that she had. When they had roasted and taken off the spits the outer meats, dividing shares, they held their communal high feast. But when they had put aside their desire for eating and drinking, first to speak was the Gerenian horseman Nestor. "Now is a better time to interrogate our guests and ask them who they are, now they have had the pleasure of eating. Strangers, who are you? From where do you come sailing over the watery ways? Is it on some business, or are you recklessly roving as pirates do, when they sail on the salt sea and venture their lives as they wander, bringing evil to alien people?" Then the thoughtful Telemachus said to him in answer, taking courage, for Athena herself had put that courage in his heart, so that he might ask after his absent father, and so that among people he might win a good reputation. "O Nestor, Neleus' son, great glory of the Achaeans, you ask us where we come from. Therefore I will tell you. We come from Ithaca, under the mountain Neon. This is a private matter, no public business, of which I tell you. I followed the wide fame of my father, on the chance of hearing of the great, patient-hearted Odysseus, the man they say once fought beside you and helped sack the city of the Trojans. For we have been told about all the other men who once fought the Trojans, how each one of them perished in sad destruction, but the son of Cronos has made this man's death one that none knows. There is no man who can plainly tell us when he perished, whether he was killed on the mainland by men embattled, or on the open sea in the billows of Amphitrite. That is why I come to your knees now, in case you might wish to tell me of his dismal destruction, whether you saw it perhaps with your own eyes, or heard the tale from another who wandered too. His mother bore this man to be wretched. Do not soften it because you pity me and are sorry for me, but fairly tell me all that your eyes have witnessed. I implore you, if ever noble Odysseus, my father, ever undertook any word or work and fulfilled it for you, in the land of the Trojans where you Achaeans suffered, tell me these things from your memory, and tell me the whole truth. In turn, Nestor the Gerenian horseman answered him, Dear friend, since you remind me of sorrows which in that country we endured, we sons of the Achaeans, valiant forever, or all we endured in our ships on the misty face of the water, cruising after plunder wherever Achilles led us, or all we endured about the great city of the Lord Priam fighting, and all who were our best were killed in that place. There Aias lies, a man of battles. There lies Achilles. There lies Patroclus, one who was like the gods for counsel. And there lies my own beloved son, both strong and stately, Antilochus, surpassingly swift to run and a fighter. And many besides these were the evils we suffered. What man who was one of the mortal people could ever tell the whole of it? Not if you were to sit beside me 5 years and 6 years and asked me about the evils the great Achaeans endured there. Sooner you would be tired of it and go back to your country. For 9 years we fabricated evils against them, trying them with every kind of stratagem, and at last the son of Cronos finished it. Then there was no man who wanted to be set up for cunning against great Odysseus. He far surpassed them in every kind of stratagem. Your father, if truly you are his son, and wonder seizes me when I look on you, for surely your words are like his words, nor would anyone ever have thought that a younger man could speak so like him. For while I and the great Odysseus were there together, we never spoke against one another, neither in council nor assembly, but for ever one in mind and in thoughtful planning, we worked out how things would go best for the Argives. But after we had sacked the sheer citadel of Priam and were going away in our ships, and the gods scattered the Achaeans, then Zeus in his mind devised a sorry homecoming for the Argives, since not all were considerate nor righteous. Therefore many of them found a bad way home, because of the ruinous anger of the grey-eyed one, whose father is mighty. It was she who made a quarrel between the 2 sons of Atreus. When these 2 called all the Achaeans into assembly, wildly and in no kind of order as the sun was setting, and the sons of the Achaeans came in heavy with drinking wine, these 2 spoke forth. It was why they assembled the people. At this time Menelaus was urging all the Achaeans to think upon going home over the sea's wide ridges, but this did not please Agamemnon at all. He wished rather to hold the people there and accomplish holy hecatombs so as to soften Athena's deadly anger. Poor fool, who had no thought in his mind that she would not listen to him. The will of the everlasting gods is not turned suddenly. So these 2, after making exchange with hard words, stood up to go, and the rest of the strong-grieved Achaeans rushed out with inhuman clamor, and 2 opposed counsels pleased them. That night we slept there, pondering in our minds hard thoughts against each other. Zeus was contriving pain of hardship. At dawn, some of us hauled our ships down into the divine sea and loaded our possessions aboard and the deep-girdled women. But half the people were held back because they remained there with Agamemnon, Atreus' son, shepherd of the people. We the other half went aboard and drove on, and the ships went very fast, as a god flattened the sea full of monsters. We came to Tenedos, and made sacrifice to the immortals. We were straining homeward, but Zeus, hard-hearted, was not yet devising homecoming for us, but again inspired yet another quarrel. Then some who followed the lord Odysseus, the wise and resourceful, turned about, and boarding once more their oar-swept vessels, went back, bringing comfort to Atreus' son, Agamemnon. But I, with all the ships that followed, pulled together, fled away, for I saw how the god was devising evils, and the warlike son of Tydeus fled, and urged his companions on, and late fair-haired Menelaus came to join us, and caught us at Lesbos as we pondered our long sea voyage, whether we should sail over the top of rocky Chios by the island Scyros, keeping it on our left hand, or else to pass under Chios by windy Mimas. We asked the god to give us some portent for a sign, and the god gave us one, and told us to cut across the middle main sea for Euboea, and so most quickly escape the hovering evil. A whistling wind rose up and began to blow, and the ships ran very fast across those waves full of fish, and at night time brought us in at Geraistos. We sacrificed many thigh bones of bulls to Poseidon, having measured the great open water. It was the 4th day when the companions of Diomedes, breaker of horses, Tydeus' son, made fast their balanced ships at Argos. I held on for Pylos. Never once did the wind fail, once the god had set it to blowing. So, dear child, I came back, without news, and I knew nothing of those other Achaeans which had survived, which ones had perished. But all I have got by hearsay, sitting here in my palace, this you shall know. It is right you should. I will not conceal it. They say that the Myrmidons, those furious spearmen led by the glorious son of great-hearted Achilles, made a good voyage, and Philoctetes, Poias' shining son, had fair sailing, and Idomeneus brought back to Crete all of his companions who had escaped from the fighting. The sea took none of these men. You yourselves, though you live apart, have heard of Atreides, how he came home, and how Aegisthus devised his wretched death. But Aegisthus, too, paid for it in a dismal fashion. So it is good, when a man has perished, to have a son left after him, since this one took vengeance on his father's killer, the treacherous Aegisthus, who cut down his glorious father. So you too, dear friend, for I see you are tall and splendid. Be brave, too, so that men unborn may speak well of you. Then the thoughtful Telemachus said to him in answer, O Nestor, son of Neleus, great glory of the Achaeans, it is all too true that he took revenge, and so the Achaeans will carry his glory far and wide, a theme for the singers to come. If only the gods would give me such strength as he has, to take revenge on the suitors for their overbearing oppression. They force their way upon me and recklessly plot against me. No, the gods have spun out no such strand of prosperity for me and my father. Now we must even have to endure it. Then in turn Nestor the Gerenian horseman answered him, Dear friend, since you have spoken about these things and reminded me, they do say that many suitors for the sake of your mother are in your palace against your will, and plot evil against you. Tell me, are you willingly put down, or are the people who live about you swayed by some divine voice and hate you? Who knows whether he will come some day and punish the violence of these people, either by himself or all the Achaeans with him? If only great Athena would deign to love you, as in those days she used so to take care of glorious Odysseus in the Trojan country, where we Achaeans suffered miseries. For I never saw the gods showing such open affection as Pallas Athena, the way she stood beside him openly. If she would deign to love you as she did him, and care for you in her heart, then some of those people might well forget about marrying. Then the thoughtful Telemachus said to him in answer, Old sir, I think that what you have said will not be accomplished. What you mean is too big. It bewilders me. That which I hoped for could never happen to me, not even if the gods so willed it. Now in turn the grey-eyed goddess Athena spoke to him.
Telemachus, what sort of word escaped your teeth's barrier? Lightly a god, if he wishes, can save a man, even from far off. I myself would rather first have gone through many hardships and then come home, and look upon my day of returning, then come home, and be killed at my own hearth, as Agamemnon was killed by the treacherous plot of his wife, and by Aegisthus. But death is a thing that comes to all alike. Not even the gods can fend it away from a man they love. when once the destructive doom of leveling death has fastened upon him."
Then the thoughtful Telemachus said to her in answer, "Mentor, though we sorrow, let us speak no more of these things. His homecoming is no longer a real thing, but already the immortal gods must have contrived his death and black doom. But now I would find out about another story, and question Nestor, since the righteousness and thought in his mind outpass others, and they say he has been lord over 3 generations of men. He shapes as an immortal for me to look upon. O Nestor, son of Neleus, tell me the true story. How did Atreus' son, widely ruling Agamemnon, die? And where was Menelaus? What scheme of death did treacherous Aegisthus have, to kill one far better than he was? Was Menelaus out of Achaea and Argos, wandering elsewhere among men, that Aegisthus had courage to do it?" Then in turn, Nestor the Gerenian horseman answered, "So, my child, I will relate you the whole true story. All would have happened just in the way you yourself have seen it, if Atreus' son, fair-haired Menelaus, on his homecoming from Troy, had found Aegisthus still alive in his palace. Even after his death, none would have heaped any earth upon him, but he would have lain in the field outside the city, and the dogs and birds would have feasted on him, nor would any Achaean woman have wailed over him. That was a monstrous plot he accomplished. For we were sitting out there and accomplishing many hard tasks, while he, at ease deep in the corner of horse-pasturing Argos, kept talking to Agamemnon's wife and trying to charm her. Now in time before, beautiful Clytemnestra would not consent to the act of shame, for her own nature was honest, and also a man was there, a singer, whom Agamemnon, when he went to Troy, had given many instructions to keep watch on his wife. But when the doom of the gods had entangled her, so that she must submit, Aegisthus took the singer, and left him on a desert island for the birds of prey to spoil and feed on, and took her back to his house, and she was willing as he was. Then on the sacred altars of the gods he burned many thigh bones and hung up many dedications, gold, and things woven, for having accomplished this monstrous thing he never had hoped for. Now we sailed back on our way from Troy together, Atreus' son, Menelaus, and I, with friendly thoughts toward each other. But when we had come to holy Sunion, the Cape of Athens, there Phoebus Apollo, with a visitation of his painless arrows, killed the steersman of Menelaus, the one who held in his hands the steering oar of the running ship. This was Phrontis, Aenetor's son, who surpassed all the breed of mortals in the steering of a ship whenever storm winds were blowing. So Menelaus, though straining for the journey, was detained there to bury his companion and give him due rites. But when he too had gone out on the wine-blue open water in his hollow ships, and made his run as far as the steep rock of Malea, then Zeus of the wide brows devised that his journey should be hateful, and poured out upon him the blast of shrilling winds, and waves that bulged and grew monstrous like mountains. There he cut the fleet in 2 parts, and drove some on Crete, where the Kydonians lived around the streams of Iardanos. There is the sheer of a cliff, a steep rock out in the water at the other end of Gortys, on the misty face of the main, where the south wind piles up a huge surf on the left of the rock horn towards Phaistos, and a little stone holds out the big water. It was there they came, and by lively work the men avoided destruction, but the waves smashed their ships on the splinters of rock. But the wind and the water, catching up the other 5 dark-prowed ships, bore them along and drove them on Egypt. So Menelaus, gathering much gold and livelihood in those parts, sailed with his ships to men of alien language, and all the while at home Aegisthus worked out his grim plans. 7 years he lived as lord over golden Mycenae, after he killed Atreides, with the people subject beneath him. But in the 8th the evil came on him, great Orestes come home from Athens, and he killed his father's murderer, the treacherous Aegisthus, who had killed his glorious father. When he had killed, he ordered among the Argives a grave mound for his mother, who was hateful, and for unwarlike Aegisthus. And on the same day Menelaus of the great war cry sailed in, bringing back many possessions, the burden his ships carried. So, dear friend, do not you stay long and far wandering away from home, leaving your possessions, and in your house men so overbearing. for fear they divide up all your property and eat it away, so all your journey will have no profit. And yet I do encourage you and urge you to visit Menelaus, for he is newly come from abroad, and people who live where no man's mind would ever have hope of returning, once the storm winds had blundered him off his course and into an open sea that is so great that not the birds even cross it by their own strength, it is so big and terrible. But go to him now, with your ship and with your companions, or if you wish to go by land, here are horses and chariot, and here are my own sons at your service, who will be your escorts into shining Lacedaemon, the home of fair-haired Menelaus. You yourself must entreat him to speak the whole truth to you. He will not tell you any falsehood. He is too thoughtful. So he spoke, and the sun went down, and the darkness came over, and now the grey-eyed goddess Athena spoke before them.
Old sir, all that you have said was fair and orderly. But come now, cut out the tongues of the victims and mix the wine bowls, so that when we have poured an offering to Poseidon and the other immortals, we can think about sleep. It is that time. For now the light has gone into the darkness, nor is it becoming to sit about at the feast of the gods, but better to go home.
So she spoke, the daughter of Zeus, and they listened to her. The heralds poured water over their hands to wash with, and the young men filled the mixing bowls with wine for their drinking, and passed to all, after they had offered a drink in the goblets. They threw the tongues in the fire, and stood up and made a libation. But when they had poured and drunk each as much as he wanted, then Athena and godlike Telemachus started up together to go away to their hollow vessel. But Nestor detained them where they were, and made a speech to them. May Zeus and all the other immortals beside forfend that you, in my domain, should go on back to your fast ship, as from some man altogether poor and without clothing, who has not any abundance of blankets and rugs in his household for his guests, or for himself to sleep in soft comfort. But I do have abundance of fine rugs and blankets. No, no, in my house the dear son of Odysseus shall not have to go to sleep on the deck of a ship, as long as I am alive, and my sons after me are left in my palace to entertain our guests, whoever comes to my household. Then in turn the goddess grey-eyed Athena said to him,
This was well said by you, dear old sir. It is fitting that Telemachus should obey you, since it is much better that way. So he shall go along with you now, so that he can sleep in your palace, but I shall be going down to my black ship, so that I can encourage my companions and tell them everything. For I am the only man among them who can call myself an elder. The rest, all of an age with the great-hearted Telemachus, are younger men who out of love for him went along. There I will lie down beside the black ship now, but at dawn shall make for the great-hearted Caucones, where a debt owed me has been piling up. It is not a new thing nor a small one. You, since this young man has come to your household, give him conveyance with your son by chariot, and give him those horses that are best for strength, and the lightest runners.
So speaking, grey-eyed Athena went away in the likeness of a vulture, and amazement seized on all the Achaeans, and the old man was amazed at what his eyes saw. He took Telemachus by the hand and spoke a word to him and named him. Dear friend, I have no thought that you will turn out mean and cowardly if, when you are so young, the gods go with you and guide you thus. Here was no other of those who have their homes on Olympus but the very daughter of Zeus, most honored Tritogeneia, who always among the Argives favored your noble father. So now, O queen, be gracious, and grant me good reputation for myself and for my children also, and for my grave wife, and I will sacrifice you a yearling cow with wide forehead, unbroken, one no man has ever led under the yoke yet. I will gild both her horns with gold and offer her to you. So he spoke in prayer, and Pallas Athena heard him. Now the Gerenian horseman Nestor led the way for his sons and his sons-in-law back to his splendid dwelling. But after they had reached the glorious dwelling of the king, they took their places in order on chairs and along the benches. And as they came in, the old man mixed the wine bowl for them with wine sweet to drink, which the housekeeper had opened in its 11th year, and loosed the sealing upon it. The old man mixed the wine in the bowl and prayed much, pouring a libation out to Athena, daughter of Zeus of the Aegis. When they had poured and drunk, each man as much as he wanted, they went away each one to sleep in his own dwelling. But Nestor the Gerenian horseman gave Telemachus, the dear son of godlike Odysseus, a place to sleep in, upon a corded bedstead in the echoing portico. Next to him was Pisistratos, of the strong ash spear, leader of men, who of his sons in the palace was still a bachelor. But Nestor himself slept in the inner room of the high house, and at his side the lady his wife served as bedfellow. But when the young dawn showed again with her rosy fingers, then Nestor the Gerenian horseman rose up from his bed, and went outside, and took his seat upon the polished stones, which were there in place for him in front of the towering doorway, white stones, with a shine on them that glistened. On these before him, Neleus, a counsellor like the gods, had held his sessions, but he had been beaten down by his doom and gone down to Hades' house, and now Gerenian Nestor, the Achaeans' watcher, sat there holding his staff, and his sons coming out of their chambers gathered in a cluster about him, Echephron and Stratios, Perseus and Aretos and Thrasymedes the godlike, and sixth was the hero Pisistratos, who came to join them. They brought out godlike Telemachus, and seated him next them, and Nestor the Gerenian horseman began speaking to them. Act quickly now, dear children, and do me this favour, so that I may propitiate first of all the gods Athena, who came plainly to me at our happy feasting in the gods' honour. Come then, let one man go to the field for a cow, so that she may come with all speed, and let one of the oxherds be driving her, and one go down to the black ship of great-hearted Telemachus, and bring back all his companions, leaving only 2 beside her, and yet another go tell the worker in gold, Laerces, to come, so that he can cover the cow's horns with gold. You others, stay here all together in a group, but tell the serving women who are in the house to prepare a glorious dinner, and set chairs and firewood in readiness, and fetch bright water. So he spoke, and they all bustled about. The cow came in from the field, and the companions of great-hearted Telemachus came from beside their fast black ship, and the smith came, holding in his hands the tools for forging bronze, his handicraft's symbols, the anvil and the sledgehammer and the well-wrought pincers, with which he used to work the gold, and Athena also came to be at her rights. Now Nestor, the aged horseman, gave the smith the gold, and he gilded the cow's horns with it carefully, so the god might take pleasure seeing her offering. Stratios and the noble Echephron led the cow by the horns, and Aretos came in from the inner chamber carrying lustral water in a flowered bowl, and in the other hand scattering barley in a basket. Steadfast Thrasymedes stood by with a sharp axe in his hand to strike down the heifer. Perseus held the dish for the blood, and the aged horseman Nestor began with the water and barley, making long prayers to Athena in dedication, and threw the head hairs in the fire. Now when all had made prayer and flung down the scattering barley, Thrasymedes, the high-hearted son of Nestor, standing close up, struck, and the axe chopped its way through the tendons of the neck, and unstrung the strength of the cow. And now the daughters and daughters-in-law of Nestor and his grave wife Eurydice, eldest of the daughters of Clymenos, raised the outcry. They lifted the cow from earth of the wide ways, and held her fast in place, and Pisistratos, leader of men, slaughtered her. Now when the black blood had run out, and the spirit went from the bones, they divided her into parts, and cut out the thigh bones all according to due order, and wrapped them in fat, making a double fold, and laid shreds of flesh upon them. The old man burned these on cleft sticks, and poured the gleaming wine over, while the young men with forks in their hands stood about him. But when they had burned the thigh pieces and tasted the vitals, they cut all the remainder into pieces and spitted them, and roasted all carefully, and took off the pieces. Meanwhile, lovely Polycaste, who was the youngest of the daughters of Nestor, son of Neleus, had bathed Telemachus. But when she had bathed him and anointed him sleekly with olive oil, she threw a splendid mantle and a tunic about him, and he came out from the bath looking like an immortal, and came and sat down beside Nestor, shepherd of the people. When they had roasted and taken off the spits the outer meats, they dined where they were sitting, and men of quality started up and poured them wine in the golden goblets. But when they had put away their desire for eating and drinking, Nestor the Gerenian horseman began speaking to them. Come now, my children, harness the bright-maned horses under the yoke for Telemachus, so that he can get on with his journey. So he spoke, And they listened well to him and obeyed him, and quickly they harnessed the fast horses under the chariot. And the woman who was housekeeper put bread and wine in, and meats, such as kings whom the gods love feed on. And Telemachus stepped up into the fair-wrought chariot, and by him Pisistratos, leader of men, the son of Nestor, went up into the chariot, and in his hands took the reins, and whipped the horses to run. And they winged their way unreluctant into the plain, left behind the sheer city of Pylos. All day long they shook the yoke they wore on their shoulders. And the sun set, and all the journeying ways were darkened. They came to Pherae, and reached the house of Diocles, who was son of Ortilochus, whom Alpheus once had childed. There they slept the night, and he gave them hospitality. But when the young dawn showed again with her rosy fingers, they yoked the horses again, and mounted the chariots bright with bronze, and drove them out the front door and the echoing portico, and he whipped them into a run, and they winged their way unreluctant. They came into the plain full of wheat, and by that way made good their journey, as the fast horses took this byway. And the sun set, and all the journeying ways were darkened.